Neuroscience and new tools of brain imaging are changing the way we understand education. Brain functions like learning, understanding, and remembering are physical processes that are actually happening at a molecular level. Teachers and educators are not only teaching, they are facilitating brain development. At the moment of birth, babies have all the brain cells they'll have for the rest of their life. But it's the connections between these cells that will really determine how the brain will develop. The first 8 years are crucial in making these connections and have a lasting impact on the child's ability to learn and succeed in school and in life. The neurons are the brain's fundamental building blocks. There are about 100 billion neurons in the brain. As Professor Barbara Oakley at Oakland University explains, a neuron has a nucleus and little arms called dendrites, and these arms have little toes called dendritic spines. Coming out of the nucleus is the axon, which is like a long arm that reaches out to tickle the toes of the other neurons and connect to send a signal. In this way, electric signals move along, passing from one neuron to the next. To facilitate these connections, there are also neurotransmitters that pass the signal chemically. When we learn something, we are creating connections between neurons, forming new pathways. As we practice, the connections between the neurons get thicker and stronger. If we don't practice, the neural connections get lost, and we forget what we have learned. The strong connections between the neurons get even stronger during sleep. This is why practice is as important as sleep, and learning has to be spaced out over a number of days. Research has also discovered that exercise is very important in the process of learning because physical movement makes the brain produce brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is an important protein that activates the dendritic spines. When the connections or pathways are strong, they become part of our long-term memory, and we can use them to make new connections and understand new things. This means that the more pathways we have, the more we can learn. Even though we cannot see it, learning is a physical development of the neurostructure. Broad and solid learning experiences at an early age can set the foundation for an ongoing and enriching learning life. Neurons in different areas of the brain have different functions. These areas have developed through evolution. Our most primitive brain lays deep in the center. It regulates the most basic functions for survival, like our breathing and heartbeat. The middle layer of the brain is the limbic system, and it regulates functions like homeostasis, sleep, and our emotions. The newest and most advanced part of the brain is the higher cerebral cortex, which plays a key role in cognitive processes like attention, perception, language, consciousness, and memory. These three areas are interconnected. For example, research has shown that the amygdala, which is part of the limbic system, works as a traffic light. If the information entering the brain is enjoyable and rewarding, the amygdala will allow it to pass to the frontal cortex, where it will be processed and understood. But if the information is boring or stressful, the amygdala will stop it and send it to the lower brain to produce a primitive defense response. Neuroimaging has shown that when the amygdala is activated due to fear or stress, the frontal cortex stops working. Young brains are more sensitive to fear and stress, and the pathways developed between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex early in life have a long-term implication in the learning and brain development. Therefore, it is important to ensure a nurturing atmosphere in the classroom where reasoning and reflection are encouraged. Before entering school, a child has already developed a system to recognize visual objects and connect them to sounds. The young brain has already developed a linguistic structure to communicate with others. But in the first years of school, they are asked to reframe their brain and develop a completely new system to recognize thousands of human-invented symbols and connect them to those same objects. In a couple of years, they are expected to read and understand a book. Rapid word recognition is fundamental in the child's ability to enter a brand new world, the world of literacy and knowledge. But why is the process of learning to read so easy for some children and so difficult for others? One fundamental finding of neuroscience is that the brains learn and process information in unique ways, either because of genetics or different experiences. Researchers at Stanford University have been able to map the areas of the brain that activate when a child is learning a word for the first time. Some children show activation in the left hemisphere of the brain, which is crucial for processing language. But in other children, the activation happens in the right hemisphere of the brain, which performs tasks like creativity and imagination. There's a clear relation between kids that naturally activate the left side of the brain and successful reading. Experiments made by Professor Bruce McCandless show that focusing the attention of the child on each separate letter is more successful at activating the left side of the brain. Teaching them to decode individual phonemes first will create pathways to the left hemisphere, helping the child become a fluent reader and increasing their chances of becoming a successful student. The differences in our brains are a natural part of human diversity, so a child's success in school depends greatly on a modern education system that has the ability to adapt to the different needs of young learners. Neuroscience is evolving rapidly and discovering amazing things about how our brains work. It is opening up new ways to help young students develop a healthy and successful relationship with learning that will have a lasting positive impact on their lives and our societies.